Hello there, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Did everyone have a good weekend?
We did.
Yep.
You did? What was good about it? Just name one thing.
Productive, very productive.
Productive. Corinne.
Brianna had JOs this weekend, and
Brianna had what?
Junior Olympics this weekend,
Okay, good.
and she did not have a mental breakdown. Big win.
Yeah.
Excellent. Trisha.
It was St. Patty's Day.
It was
yeah,
St.
that's it.
Patty's Day, right? Oh, that could be very treacherous. We're liable to be getting some crazy phone calls.
I made my first corned beef ever.
How'd it come out?
Delicious. I don't even like
Potted meat.
Yeah, potted meat.
I had corned beef on Saturday.
Nice.
I had one piece,
Everyone had
and I had one piece of cabbage, and I left hungry.
We're going to be getting some desperate phone calls after these food and alcohol holidays. That's generally what happens. So everyone, we are available for these desperate phone calls, and it's okay, especially since summer is so close right now.
I'm convinced it is. The sun is out. It feels like it wants to be spring.
Today is spring.
First day of spring.
Today's the first day of spring. Hey, how about that?
Lisa told me this morning she had to have her hair up because it's the first day of spring and it's going to be warm out and she has to be ready for the warmth.
She's hopeful. She's hopeful.
You know, yesterday I think was the last cold day that was.
Yep, it was.
Yesterday was cold. Yesterday was bitter.
It was brutal.
That's it. And so it's onwards and upwards from here. Less clothing to hide behind. So we're all getting ready for that. And that's exciting. And what we wanted to discuss today was the different kinds of diets, because people are always talking about what is the right lifestyle for them. And we hear a lot of things that can be kind of confusing. Keto, paleo, low carb, plant-based. It goes on and on. Mediterranean, it goes on and on. And a lot of these different plans have different strengths and have studies behind them. But we want to kind of get to the bottom of it. Here's my question for you, moms. All right. What is the latest trend? What have you been hearing about these days? What's going around in your circles?
The Mediterranean diet is a big one.
Mediterranean.
Keto, yeah.
Okay.
I'm on a keto. Yeah. Me and my friends are on keto, low carb, no sugar.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's break it down a little bit. Corinne, you said Mediterranean. What does Mediterranean mean to you?
Mediterranean to me means no meat, and a lot of like vegetables, and fish.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. My understanding of Mediterranean. So obviously, it came from the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
So the countries like Greece. Greece in particular. This is very interesting. Have you guys ever heard of? I think they call them blue zones.
No.
No. There was a book. So there was a book written years ago about this topic. There are certain areas in the world where the people live to very ripe old ages. One of those places was, I think it's Icaria, Greece.
Okay.
And people are living, they're working till, they're 100 years old and they're still working.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons it's been studied. There's very low incidence of heart disease, dementia, cancer, the things that are getting people in this part of the world. It's not the only area in the world that's like that. In fact, there's an area right in California, a place I passed a couple of years ago when I was in LA. It's called Loma Linda. Loma Linda is also considered one of these zones where people live to very ripe old ages. They live very healthily. So getting back to the Mediterranean diet, they discovered that, yes, a diet that's based in vegetables, that has a lot of good olive oil, which is one of the keys, right? Good, healthy fats like olive oil, has a lot of fats from fish, which is considered brain food, right? The brain is made up mostly of fat. These are considered very healthy diets. And from there on, the Mediterranean diet went on. Now, Jack, what is your understanding of keto? Because that is such a buzzword.
Oh, yeah. So keto right now, so everyone automatically assumes no carbs. So no carbs, you want to go more high fats. low, high protein greens. You're mixing your vegetables, but it's also in moderation. So you're eating them in a percentage of your plate.
Macros.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Is that everyone's understanding of keto?
That's my, the general understanding, but this is what led me to believe in this conversation, because I feel like we tend to pick something like, oh yeah, look, this is working. Okay, good, let's do it, without reading and doing it properly. So when I first attempted to let me dabble into keto, or this box says keto, I'm doing the right thing. Whereas there's actually a system to doing keto correctly, paleo correctly, and with anything, moderation.
Yeah.
So just because it's keto brownies does not mean it's something you should be having.
Yeah. So another area that's confused, this ketogenic diet.
Yep.
I'm remembering back to, I want to say it was high school or junior high, where it wasn't called keto back then, right? But there were other words. I remember there was a kid who used to bring in like a baggie full of bacon.
Yeah.
Right? Did you know someone like that, Trish?
Well, no, but it's.
What about the pepperoni? Everybody used to go around eting just pepperoni.
Jerky.
Yeah, or just unlimited amounts of cheese. Like
that's why I think keto is perfect for me.
But remember, I went to high school way back, like in the 50s. So, not in the 50s, but back then it was considered odd. And I think I had a conversation with the person, and I don't know what they had going on. I think it was something with the blood sugar, maybe like it was, diabetes. And that's why they were doing that. That's why they were carrying around, they were eating a good amount of fat, which is part of the keto diet. Let's break it down a little bit. So this word keto comes from ketones. Have we all heard ketones? Do we know what ketones are?
No.
Yeah, there's so much confusion, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
There can only be
no, it's okay.
confusion.
Just tell me if it works.
Yeah, there can only be
I had
confusion.
little dipsticks that told me.
Works. I'll do it.
Okay. Yeah. So here's the idea with ketones, right? Our brains run everything, at least on a good day, right? So the brains run everything in the body. Now the brains need to be energized, and it needs to have energy. And the energy for the brains can come from a couple of sources. The first one is sugar. So we eat something, it breaks down into sugar. Generally, we're talking about, carbs. They break down into sugar. That goes up to the brain. That feeds the brain. That gives us energy to handle our life functions. Of course, too much sugar is not good. A lot of these diets we're talking about now, they're de-emphasizing sugar and carbs, right? So there's another source that can feed the brain, and it's called ketones. Ketones are released when sugar has been used up, has been depleted as a source of fuel. All right. And so that's the idea. People want to get into this ketogenic state, a state whereby their brains are being fed by these ketones, and that's breaking down fat in the body. So that's how it works. And oddly enough, fat is the fuel that people will eat instead of carbs. And we've been told that fat is not good for us, right?
Not true.
Yeah. It's not true, right? So who has experimented here with ketogenic diets? Everyone. Okay, Trish, what was your experience like?
It worked out for the most part. I don't think I did it properly with counting macros and amounts. I was kind of just eating lots of cheese and, meats that were probably not great, like cold cuts and that kind of stuff to replace. I was constantly checking, with dipsticks to make sure I was in ketosis and, I did lose some weight. It wasn't that I didn't. However, the minute I stopped it, I gained everything right back.
So that's one of the complaints that people have with keto. And
came off fast, but right back on double time.
Right. Okay. So the moment you changed and you started introducing other things, you went back up.
Correct.
So Jackie suggested that there's a right way to do keto and there's not such a right way to do it. And Jackie, what is your understanding of that? What is the right way to do keto and what is the wrong way to do it?
So keto, my understanding is that there is a certain amount of macros that each individual should be having. So mine might be different than Trisha's and Corinne's and yours and so on and so forth. So what I should be consuming, and it's also there's an introductory phase. So I should be omitting certain foods and then introducing in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, how I should be introducing specific foods that will put me into ketosis. So by maintaining it and then gradually building on what I should be having daily and meeting those macros, I should be in a constant state of fat burning.
Got it. Okay. So how would one do keto incorrectly?
So personally, I didn't do it in stages. I mean, and again, to Trisha, same thing. I did lose weight initially because it was a shock to my body, right? So I omitted foods that did not fall into any of these categories, but I did not eat accordingly the way I should have. I didn't eat structured. So I was like, okay, well, I didn't eat certain times of day. I didn't do include the intermittent fasting concept into it. So I think there were a lot of things that I kind of missed the mark on because I jumped in with both feet without really doing more research. So it was good for me for a good solid 2.5 weeks of weight loss. And then after that, it was just maintenance. And I'm like, why don't I just stand up? Now I'm not eating anything. I'm starving myself. And then the weekend comes and I eat whatever it is and I'm back up, 2 pounds on Monday. And I'm like, but I really don't eat anything bad. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. And I was kind of, I was the own imbalance in my scale.
Yeah.
I don't know the proper way still, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, listen, if there's something that we can do for people, I feel like one of the ways that we help is that we clear up confusions.
Correct.
And we are getting to a lot of confusions that people have about these things. You mentioned the word macros. For people listening, macros means macronutrients. So your macronutrients are your proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. So those are the large nutrients. There's also the micronutrients, the smaller ones, the ones that kind of feed your cells. All right. What you're suggesting is that there is a certain ratio of macronutrients that are needed, and that can vary. But keto is generally associated with high fats, very low carbs. There should be good amounts of vegetables as well.
Yes.
Here's one of the problems that I find with keto is that it doesn't necessarily distinguish, but it doesn't always distinguish between the foods and between what's quality and what's not. And I'll give you an example. The person that's eating the bacon all the time. Okay. The problem with pork products are that they are inflammatory for a lot of people. They do cause inflammation in the body. So can you do a keto diet and have a lot of bacon all the time, which, by the way, can be disgusting, right? I mean, you see they're grabbing bacon, they're shoving it, as greasy as can be, right? And it's not that saturated fats in and of themselves are necessarily bad, but certain sources are better than others. I mean, avocado is what's considered a saturated fat. But I would suggest also that there are certain foods that you can have in abundance on a keto plan, depending on the plan.
Depends.
Right? Because there are guys out there promoting smart keto, right? Where they make these different distinctions. So I'll give another example. Raise your hands if, as far as you know, any kind of nuts are a hidden trigger for you for weight gain. Okay, Jackie knows. What kind of nut?
So we were surprised by this, Dr. Art, but we found out through the program I can have chestnuts.
That's interesting. So,
and it's not an inflammatory nut.
So during Christmas, what are you putting on an open fire? What are you roasting?
I am eating them, but it's funny after doing the program, and this is why this is so interesting to me, because doing our premier program was one of the only things that worked for me that I wish I found sooner, because I was able to really make a distinction between what is healthy but not healthy for me, and that's the difference. So I went from eating, to be quite honest with you, which is the craziest thing, being not the healthiest version of myself, but I know how I got to that point specifically. But foods that I do normally eat or consume or keep in my home are not unhealthy foods. So I'm like, well, what am I constantly doing wrong? I mean, I love beans and I'll make a bean salad and everything's fresh and I use pure olive oil and I use avocado oil and I don't fry and I would, I use real cheese, nothing's fake, processed. And after doing the program, realizing introducing foods back in, I remember being so particular with maintenance. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have chestnuts. And they were these individual bags, already shells removed. And I had my serving. It was like four, and I was up like 6 pounds the next day. And then when I tell you, because I had never been in a program that worked so well, I was devastated. Like I remember staring at the scale, like as it was yelling at me, and I'm like, what in the world did I just do? And
I'm sure you were very calm about it.
No, I was freaking out. And then I remember telling Jen's like, that's really strange. I'm like, I know, because chestnuts aren't even an inflammatory, is it even a nut? It's like a fake nut, right?
I don't even, honestly, I don't know what chestnuts are. I couldn't tell you offhand what chestnuts are. I mean, they come from the chestnut tree, but that's pretty much all I know about it. They're brown, they're chestnut color.
The chestnuts.
But again, and this is knowledge that's so important for people.
Yeah, very.
When people do our program, we always start out with a detox, right? Because our main programs, we always start out with the detox because we have to clean up the accumulation of gunk that unfortunately kind of gets inside us, gunk and rust and all those things that you would think about when thinking about kind of a car engine happen inside the body.
Yeah.
So we're able to clean that up. But once we transition from that detox and we raise calories, we start introducing new foods. There are a category of foods that we consider cautionary foods.
Mm-hmm.
And we define those as foods that may be hidden triggers for weight gain. Why hidden triggers? Because who doesn't know that cotton candy is a trigger for weight gain? Right? Good and plenty. I mean, everyone, if you're not aware of this, then come to the office and I'm going to slam your head against a wall.
Yes, that's what I'm coming
in
for.
this day and age? Okay, no, that's not literally true. I will not slam your head against the wall. Trish will.
Maybe. No. Trish will.
So,
but it's the same thing where, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, go ahead. Dude, now your turn. Go.
Does this happen a lot?
All the time.
Ladies first. Okay. Age before beauty. Go ahead.
Oh. So I feel like he's always going to throw it in there. So even with doing like Pinterest, which is like it's the devil to me because it's like when I need to find something, I'm like, that's like my resource is Pinterest. But I get some really good recipe ideas, really good inspiration from there, just in general, things that work. And there's a couple of Instagram people I follow on Instagram, bloggers and holistic gurus, essentially, that put out meal prep ideas. And a lot of the meal prep ideas that I like to follow because it's what my household eats, some of those things I can't have. So they're high in nuts or high fats, and they're good things, right? These are essentially not bad foods that don't work for us. A lot of things are rice, quinoa, couscous, those types of things also cause inflammation. Now being so far removed from doing the program, I notice that now when I have those foods after not having them, my body's in actual pain. Like I feel it where, for example, we had my husband and I had poke bowls last week. And I was so full. A poke bowl.
Oh, okay, got it.
Which I'll usually get it with the zoodles, and he just he orders both the same thing, which our favorite, but he omitted. He didn't do the zoodles. He did it with the sushi rice. I never ever have it anymore. Like even if we have sushi, like I opt out to once in a while thing. I usually go for just the raw sashimi. But if I have the rice, even the littlest bit, I can't even tell you for 3 days, like the pains in my hips, I feel achy. Whereas if I would have brown rice previously or sushi rice with vegetables and whatnot, I would just have a bloated feel and I'd kind of push through it. I'm like, oh, I'm just full, but it's good for you. Yeah. Realizing this was not what's good for me, for my body.
Well, that's the important distinction that we need to make because a lot of these foods that are potential hidden triggers for people for weight gain, it starts out by causing inflammation,
Yes.
but a lot of them are quote unquote good foods.
Yes.
So if you don't identify which foods are not so good for you, see, that's the thing. Everyone has a different threshold.
Yes, totally.
Everyone can handle something differently. And that's
Yep.
why when we convert from the detox phase to more of like a regular lifestyle phase, we always want to test those foods out.
Correct.
Nuts are very common triggers. Dairy is a common trigger. With me, I know it's almonds. And it's such a shame because almonds have such good things in them.
You can't have almonds? Really?
Listen, if I have almonds, I definitely feel the inflammation. My shoes get tighter.
Yeah. You feel lethargic. You feel swollen. You feel
That's
slow
right.
motion.
Yep.
Yeah.
So these are
Well,
foods
smell
that,
it. It's
well,
cute.
and now, does anybody know why nuts can cause inflammation?
No.
No.
Okay, so this is also fascinating. It turns out everything in the animal and vegetable kingdom is trying to survive. So there are certain kind of plant-based things that we consider food that have these chemicals that protect them.
Okay.
So an example of this is nuts commonly have chemicals called lectins. Lectins are able to protect them from kind of like, animals who want to eat them. And in the case of humans, these lectins can cause inflammation. So that's the problem with lectins, and lectins can be found in nuts. It can be found in soy. It can be found in like nightshade vegetables.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so it's really important to test it out. All my Italian people, anyone with a vowel at the end of your name, raise your hand. Yeah. Okay, good. And everyone at home is raising their hand, right?
Exactly.
Joe's raising his hand. He's raising both hands, right? So by this point, most people know about pasta, but the tomato sauce can also be triggering an inflammatory response, which will lead to weight gain. That's the interesting thing about inflammation. Being overweight is another example, or it can be conceived as another example of an inflammatory disease. Right? And I think that's important to understand that point.
It is. Now, Dr. R, and this is the problem. Everyone's like, okay, inflammation, it's okay. Ache, a pain. Oh, it's worth it for just now. If you make this a regular thing, the longer inflammation stays in your body consistently, that's what causes unhealthy diseases, heart diseases, cancers, things of that nature. So it's a chain reaction. So it's not necessarily like, okay, I had almonds today. It was worth it. The inflammation's bad. It's when you do things like this in excess and you keep your body in an inflammatory state, causes the disruptors for the future.
That's right. And that's one of the problems. We would be so much better off if we knew that the nuts would do it. And as soon as as soon as I had a handful of almonds, an arm fell off.
Yeah.
I'd be better off. There'd be more clarity. Right. But now it's not, because there's we can rationalize it very easily. Okay, I'll have it today. I won't have it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting here telling you I'm not going to have almonds again.
Right.
I mean, it's it's the kind of thing we can deal with the almonds. It won't kill us, but it's food is either a slow acting poison or it's the greatest medicine that exists. And we have to make these distinctions. It's also an interesting point that traditionally it was known that nuts would kind of some nuts cause inflammation, at least in some people. And the way that it was kind of prepared was different. Like they'd be soaked or sprouted. That tends to mitigate that inflammatory response. So it's really fascinating when you learn about it.
It really is.
I actually just,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I just watched a whole video a couple of days ago all about lectins and how they're bad for you and all the different things that there's so many foods that have these lectins in them that it's amazing that you're told not to eat this and not to eat that. And it's almost like, okay, well, what can I eat today?
Yeah. Now there's the thing about when you talk about nutrition and when you talk about lifestyle, and we certainly don't want people to get overwhelmed, because when you start getting into it, all the competing theories, then, you're like, well, what can I eat? And then you go into a state of apathy and you say, screw it, and you eat everything, right? So
Yeah, we don't want that.
Yeah, we don't want to go there. There is such a thing as balance and understanding. If you watch that video about lectins online, if it came up in your Facebook feed, there's one doctor in particular, that is his thing. He preaches that. And since that's his focus, it might be kind of one of those things where he loses a balanced perspective on it. It's hard to say. That's why we encourage people to test for themselves. And the thing is, if you test it out for yourself, let's say, you have a handful of almonds one day, and then you discover the next day that, you gain 2 pounds and your shoes are tighter on you and you have a headache and whatnot, right? Well, then you have a choice to make. So it brings us back to choice, which is a good thing, right? We'd rather not have choices or not be burdened with them, but we always have a choice in what we do. That is an empowering thing. It should be an empowering thing. There's no gun against your head. There's no moral component necessarily. It's what is it that you want? What is it that you're trying to create with your health and your life?
Right.
And what's going to best serve you? That's the choice that you make. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Now, what is paleo?
Hybrid version.
Are we guessing?
Kind of keto, right?
Paleo is my idea is like if it's grown from the ground with a mix of sprouted grains.
Well,
but it has to be a sprouted grain in order to eat it.
Okay, that may or may not be true. I'm not sure. I don't know that much about paleo.
I want the real definition.
What do you understand? You may or may not find a definition. I mean, you may find like the meaning of the word paleo as opposed to the paleo way of eating and living, right? What, Trish, you've heard that term, right?
Yeah, I thought it was honestly just like a keto version. I thought if it was, I think it was just without the dairy portion of it. It was more just like a meat and vegetable kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, I'll tell you my understanding of paleo.
Oh, this is interesting.
There's one practitioner in particular, who promotes paleo. There are several, but he kind of created this character, a caveman called Grok. And I think paleo is the idea is that we evolve to eat a certain way, to live a certain lifestyle, and paleo tries to replicate that. So, yes, we're not eating processed things. We're eating things that come from the ground. We are eating meats in paleo. We are trying to get sun, which modern doctors will tell you stay out of the sun. But we are trying to get sun and exercise. I mean, we're basically, again, we're trying to replicate. And it's also, I think there's an emphasis on anti-inflammatory foods, as there should be. Jack, do you have a definition? Did you find?
This is a pretty simple, it's a good way of understanding, at least get at the start of it. The main difference is that on the keto diet, most of your calories come from fat, whereas on the paleo diet, most of them come from protein. And then when you looked back here to see the real way to mimic a paleo diet, it's very difficult, is really having more wild game meats and proteins. The Paleolithic diet, paleo diet, or caveman diet, even considered Stone Age diet, is a modern fad diet consisting of foods thought by its proponents to mirror those eaten by humans during the Paleolithic era. So that is a lot harder.
Now you have to define the Paleolithic era.
Way back when you were a caveman,
that's not the definition of it. That's your definition of it.
Let me see. All right, here.
I have a different definition if you want me to read it. It says,
I want to hear it.
It says a diet based on types of food presumed to have been eaten by early humans, consistently chiefly of meat, fish, vegetables, and fruit, excluding dairy or grain products and processed foods.
Right. So this is all a version of kind of what we're talking about, right? Again, It seems like the paleo guys are kind of mocking up or assuming or researching what early man ate and trying to do that. And it does make logical sense, right? If we evolved over the years to eat like that, and then suddenly one day we started saying, what would happen if we processed this and if we created this in a lab? That should not work as well as the stuff we were evolved to eat. I think that the meats, and Jackie made this point, they're supposed to be like from ideally wild game.
Wild game,
right?
yeah.
Not so much factory farmed.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. So it should be wild game. Does that include organ meats?
You know what? It doesn't say here, but I would think based upon I would think that should be okay.
I would also. Organ meats is apparently something that was eaten a lot, and modern people don't eat it so much. Or we're talking about liver, heart. We're talking about So some of this stuff,
liver and onions.
Yeah.
We're good.
Blood,
Me and my potted meat are good.
I can't tell how you guys feel about it with your poker faces, but
We're good.
No, listen, it's all arbitrary when you think about it. Like, what's the difference between muscle meat and organ meat?
Yeah, no, it's true.
Are we aware that that's what we're eating when we're eating a steak, that it's muscle?
You know what's funny? So I never.
You don't have to point it out,
Yeah, I never think about
Whether you
it.
acknowledge it or not.
A good old tenderloin.
It's like saying, I'm going out to the farm and I'm going to go kill my chicken today. And I'm like, pluck the.
Why do you think I was vegan for years?
Well, there are times where like I actually consider, and for some reason I can wrap my head around it. I would be fine if I never eat chicken again. Like chicken to me is such a strange thing. Like, it can't be thick chicken, it has to be thin. I beat the hell out of these chicken cutlets when I get to them. Like, these gotta be paper thin. If I get one little chewy piece, I'm off of it for a month. Like, I just can't. And I feel like I could totally be a pescatarian because fish, I can eat fish every single day.
Did you say a pescatarian?
What?
Yeah, pescatarian. Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody that only eats fish.
I didn't say pest with a T.
Oh, okay.
Stop it right now. It's just my.
Go ahead.
I say pescatarian.
Jen's not here, so.
Jen's not here. I'm gonna call her. And then, that's fine. On occasion, like, do I want steak or like, of any sort? I prefer it red, of course. But when I really think about what it is, I'm like this, like the corned beef. Can I tell you when I made it? I was dying. I cut open this bag. I'm like, why is this substance? What is happening right now?
I get it. No, it's a weird thing from a certain perspective, right? So you do with that information what you want. I don't know that. Well, I guess early man, like when he had the opportunity to kill an animal, whether it was a buffalo or what have you, he was eating as much of it as he can. I don't know that we're supposed to be eating such large quantities of proteins, and we kind of de-emphasize it. Like, we say moderate proteins because most people don't know this. Protein in excess will be converted to sugar in the body. It's a really weird thing, right? But again, it comes back to what we were saying before, is that the brain needs fuel. Sugar is a kind of fuel. So under certain circumstances, protein will be converted to sugar.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild, isn't it?
So I have a friend of mine who has she has stomach issues, and she's just by her routine, she literally eats the exact same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day.
She's been doing that for how long?
Oh my God. 6 years.
So do you think, projecting forward into the future, 40 years from now, that she will have had no other food?
So she'll only, when she goes out to eat, she's limited because of what she can and can't have. So she always eats the same thing if she does go out. But yes, she eats, I just don't see that being good long term.
It's not.
But it's working. That's what I would think. Now, that it's funny, but the same thing when you see these bodybuilders or those looking to lose weight by intermittent fasting, and then they have their scheduled planned meals where they're eating every 2 hours, and they're eating the exact same thing for a week at a time. It's grilled chicken, rice, whatever their vegetable is, this is their fruit. Next week, it's this. What happens to our body when we don't differentiate in between different types of foods? Like, for example, even when we discuss having red meat, even though I skeeve it to a certain extent, just on sometimes we have canines. Like, that's what they're used for. They were used for eating meat.
Well, the vegan in me would argue that with you, but that's a whole different conversation. I mean, I think it's been shown that man can survive on a variety of diets.
Right.
Traditionally the Inuit in Alaska, they're not eating a lot of fresh vegetables. I mean, they're eating whale blubber.
Yeah.
So man can do well apparently on a lot of different diets, and this is why these debates go on as far as what's best for us. When it comes to veganism, there are other considerations, right? Be it the planet or the welfare of the animals. Believe it or not, one of the reasons I became a vegan years ago was because of a book that I read. It was called Diet for a New America. And was talking about factory farms and how bad they are for the planet, and the fact that it took like 5,000 gallons of water to produce a pound of meat, and like 50 gallons of water to produce a pound of grains.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm not remembering that probably exactly, but it's something crazy like that. Our meat-based diets in this country, they use up an awful lot of resources, and that was one of the considerations. Now, not everybody thinks about anything other than personal tastes. Not everyone thinks about impact on the planet and whatever. I can't say that I think that way too much anymore. But that way at the time was a very powerful piece of data for me.
Did you feel good as a vegan? How long did you do it
No,
for?
I did it first. I did it right at first, mostly vegetables, some grains, but then I started with the processed kind of soy-based things,
Yeah.
and that sent me down a bad road. I gained a lot of weight. So again, there's a right way to do veganism. There's a wrong way. There's a right way to do keto. There's a wrong way. So that's what we have to look at.
Yeah.
And these are all very controversial subjects. I don't think we should beat a horse anymore, but I hope that everyone got a little clarity on some of these subjects.
Absolutely.
Whatever people choose to do in their lifestyles, they should understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, how it's fitting to their overall plan of what they're trying to accomplish. I would think we're all trying to be lean. We're all trying to be healthy. We're all trying to maximize our potential while still maintaining, our social ties and our social lives, which revolve around food very often. So there is a lot to consider, but don't overwhelm yourselves. Have fun. Eat, drink, and be merry. How's that?
There you go. No, everything in moderation, but definitely consider the fact that just because you're eating healthy and it's not working for you doesn't mean you're having something that's bad. It's just not good for you. So you have to understand that there's a lot more to losing weight than just not eating.
Yeah, let's amend that. Everything in moderation. Let's say every good thing in moderation.
Every good thing, yes, I agree.
Right,
Yes,
because there are certain things we don't want to have even in moderation.
Oh, yeah, true.
Right? Okay, good. So let's end off here. We will see everyone next week. If you have any comments, please feel free to share. I should have said that before. You're always welcome. And we'll see you around the office.
Have a good one.
Bye.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.